Do you know what's great about motorcycling in the mountains with your friends? Everything. Everything is great about motorcycling with your friends in the mountains in these wide open spaces of northern Colorado and southern Wyoming. You know, throughout this podcast, I've tried to describe these places and how I feel when I'm out there on my bike. I perhaps described the fun of riding with friends out there as well, but I've not yet recorded one of those conversations from the road. Until now. I'm excited to share with you an unedited conversation with my friend Andreas Metzger. Andreas and his wife Lisa joined me for a long Saturday ride through arguably the most beautiful spaces on earth here in northern Colorado and southern Wyoming. I gave Andreas no prep time. I just handed him a clip-on microphone and said, "Okay, buddy, let's talk." And what you're about to hear is really two of the luckiest guys in the world, I would say. We're out on the road sitting underneath the shade tree at Serenity Coffee in tiny little Riverside, Wyoming, population 66. A few motorcycles are riding by, and even a deer walked right by us, a big old buck, walked right by us there while we were talking. What a fabulous day. Turned out to be 475 miles by the time I got home. It was just a magical mountain riding day. And here's the recording of that conversation. Stay tuned. Recorded in beautiful Loveland, Colorado. Welcome to Peace, Love, Moto, the podcast for motorcyclists seeking that peaceful, easy feeling as we cruise through this life together. Are you ready? Let's go. So I've been out for a ride today, one of the longer rides here in northern Colorado and into southern Wyoming with my good friends, Andreas and Lisa. They live in Estes Park. I live in Loveland. We connect and we go for rides. And today has been one of the longer rides out. And so describe your motorcycle, if you would, to begin with. What bike are you on today?
So we are riding a red BMW K1600 GT, which is the perfect touring bike for a little bit of sportiness, but also just comfort for long distance rides like today. So we're going to ride, close to 400 miles today.
400 miles today, something like that. Here goes a Harley.
Hey.
There goes another Harley. By the way, where we are sitting right now is at the Serenity Coffee Cafe, outdoor cafe in Riverside, Wyoming, which we've been a lot. This makes for a wonderful loop. Today, though, we did an extended loop way out into the area called Medicine Bow on the old Lincoln Highway. And back to your bike, if I'm not mistaken, can't it reach about 110 miles per hour? Like 30 minutes ago?
Only chasing you.
I'll have to bleep this out, but I saw 121.
I think it was more than that.
I don't know. Yeah, it was a personal record. But what was your introduction into motorcycling? You clearly know what you're doing, by the way.
So when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, the family that used to babysit me, they had a son named Stephen Fink, and they had a little farm, and he had a dirt bike, and he took me around the farm up and down these steep hills. And at about age 10, I said to my parents, I was like, "I want a dirt bike just like Stephen." And they're like, "Absolutely not." So on my 11th birthday, I convinced them to take me to the Honda dealership, and I got a Honda XR75. Used to park it in my bedroom. I lived on the lower. Everybody else lived upstairs. I lived on the lower floor, walkout basement, and I parked the motorcycle in my bedroom next to my bed.
Awesome.
And I put the number 11 on the number plate because I had a racing number plate. And so that was my first bike, and that's where I learned how to basically learned how to ride a dirt bike. What are those noisemakers?
What are those noisemakers? Somebody got big smiles on their faces, whatever's going on there. Well, it's interesting. I didn't realize how our lives had paralleled so closely. So I got my first mini bike, the lawnmower engine style, at 11, same age you got your XR75. But my next bike was an XL70, which I wanted the XR75 because you had the dirt bike version, and mine had a little light on it. I like it. Oh, by the way, there's a buck, a deer, just crossing the road in front of us just now.
That was amazing.
Pretty amazing. This, by the way, is also, I was mentioning to you guys earlier, this is the street where I've seen 10 and 12-year-olds on their four-wheelers going right down the middle of the street.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's so great. It's so great. Well, as far as riding in Colorado, we've got all sorts of varieties, right? We got follow the canyons, follow the rivers. And you got these high plains, kind of, I guess you call this high plains where we are.
Yeah.
And big open spaces. What's your preference? Do you like them both, or do you have a preference for either one?
You know, probably the most spectacular thing about riding in Colorado and Wyoming are just the vast expanses. You'll come around a corner, you'll go over a hilltop, and the view of the valley and everything in front of you, the plateau, is just breathtaking. It's really, you never get tired of it. It's like, it's just spectacular. It's unbelievable how large and how expansive this country is. It's like, and the fact that we can ride 400 miles with very little traffic. I mean,
all day long.
Sometimes you'll come over a crest of hill, and the road, you can probably see 20 miles, and you probably can't see a single car on it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you hear cars going past us right now, but it's very, very sparse. It's like you really have the road to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, I like just the variety. I think the thing that makes it really nice is almost every single time you and I want to ride, the weather is just beautiful.
It's really good luck.
Like today, there's clouds in the sky, but it's a beautiful blue sky, and the temperature is just amazing. And it's very invigorating.
Now, you live a life where you go from a very busy, crowded, super high-tech, well, whatever you call it, New York City.
Yeah.
So you're spending a lot of time in New York City. Then you come back to your home in Estes Park, where your beautiful wife, Lisa, works at Rocky Mountain National Park as a ranger there. So between that and then Rocky Mountain National Park, and then being out in these big vistas, and then in being in Manhattan, does your brain explode trying to comprehend all these different lifestyles?
I call it living from sea level to continental divide. And literally in New York, we live at sea level. And out here in Colorado, we're at about 8,000 feet. And frequently we'll go up the hill to 12,000 or 12,500 to the continental divide. Yeah. So it's really spectacular to be able to have both. New York really challenges your mind and your thought process and relationships. And, there's a lot of people that want to change the world there. And in Colorado, you get the opposite of that. You get a lot of people that want to experience nature and enjoy what God created for us. And so they're opposite extremes, and having both available to you is really, that's really a blessing. It's really incredible. Sometimes you're not sure where you're supposed to be at, right? Whether you're supposed to be in New York or whether you're supposed to be in Colorado. But it's been spectacular.
I've been traveling, as you know, I've been traveling a lot lately too, every week. And there's been a couple mornings I forget where I am. I have thought, waking up at home, I thought I was in Dallas or McKinney. Waking up in McKinney, I thought I was home until I can't find the bathroom. Wait a minute. It's not where it was. But yeah, it's funny. I spend, maybe you feel the same way, but we spend a lot of time for work traveling and then think, oh, I cannot wait to get home. But then we hop on our motorcycles and ride 400 miles.
Yeah, that's right.
We're back on the road again, but it's just completely different. It's just so vastly different. So the people that you've met. So we're sitting here not too far from Cassie's.
Yeah.
Serenity Coffee. We were just talking Cassie a moment ago. And at least my impression is that the people that you meet out in places like this are the most down-to-earth, nicest, sweetest, genuine people you could ever meet.
Well, it's just like what happened back at the gas station in Laramie. The gentleman that pulled up to the pump next to us, he started talking to us. He goes, yeah, well, if we would have been on motorcycles, you wouldn't be talking to us.
Yeah.
And he was a chief warrant officer in the military.
Iraqi war, yeah.
And I think we had like probably a 5 or 10 minute conversation with him.
Yeah.
And there's just no rush. There's no urgency to get someplace, do something. It's just enjoying life and interacting with people and being able to know your fellow man, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of learn what's happening in other people's lives.
Yeah.
It's not just about me, myself, and I.
Yeah. Given like the people that you know and work with from larger cities, and I met some of your partners who have come here.
Yeah, Mike Allen came out and rode with us, and Bruce Gregory, and
Did they have experience out in the big, vast areas like this prior to coming out?
They never stopped talking about the rides that we took.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
I was just wondering if it was new to them and what they thought.
They have been on rides before, both of them. But there's very few places that I know of that are as magnificent as what we are doing today.
Yeah. Here comes
a clan.
Here comes some thumpers. We got some single-cylinder bikes riding through right now. It's like some KLRs. There's a Honda at the back.
Yeah, I think it's just, the fact that we have plains as well as the Rocky Mountains together.
Yeah.
Like usually you don't get both in one ride. You usually get one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think just the vast difference, and then you get to these plateaus where you can just see as far as your eye can see. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah. And I've talked about this a little bit before too on the podcast, but I like the idea of riding a really high quality machine too. Just knowing the engineerings. For the listeners, we're both riding BMWs today.
Yeah.
Nothing against Triumph, nothing against Harley, nothing against Honda or anybody, Kawasaki, anybody else. Nothing against those.
Nothing against
but
there is a reason why we're driving BMWs.
We are riding BMWs because we like them a whole lot. Yeah. And it's the engineering, right? Do our bikes come out of the same factory?
Yes.
They do? I thought so.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're like cousins.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not that the listeners need to know this, but my family, both my parents were born in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Not in Berlin where they're made, but in southern Germany where they make Porsches and Mercedes. And so my parents have always had the mindset of, if you're going to do something, do it right. And so you learn to appreciate that engineering, and it's just, and the safety of it. It's just, these bikes are extremely safe.
Yeah.
I mean, only as safe as the driver, but
the braking and all that's amazing.
Everything is thought out. There's nothing left to chance.
Yeah.
And my wife feels comfortable on the back at 180.
Something else we got to bleep out. Yeah, she just hit him across the face. You could only see that. She's just out of striking distance, which is good. But, yeah, and kind of back to what it does for us, and a little bit about the conversation that I had with that gentleman at the gas station, the guy that was the veteran. A lot of people need this. Just to get out. We're not on our phones. We can't be. We're not in front of the TV, and we're not watching the news or scrolling through Instagram or anything else, which I'm very guilty of a lot of the time when I'm at home. But out here, out on the bike, you're not doing that at all. And we have been on the road for how long? It's about 10 minutes till 3, and we met at 7:30 this morning.
Yep. We left our house in Estes at 6:30, 6:45, something like that.
Then we made a couple stops, stopped for lunch.
Yeah, we stopped for lunch, and she goes, "Yeah, we're still serving breakfast." I was like,
"Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah,
it's not even lunch yet."
Yeah, just back for the listeners to know where we went. So we met in Loveland. They came down from Estes Park on their bike and met me in Loveland, where we went over it's so hard to describe some of these back roads, but we took a lot of back roads going north, then went over east a little bit to connect up with Highway 25, then 25 all the way into Cheyenne, Wyoming. Stopped at a little coffee shop there, which is called the Paramount Coffee Shop. It's in an old movie theater. Oh, there's lots of wind blowing up right now. Anyway, so we stopped there, and then from there we went to the north and then to the west to ride over what's called Happy Jack Road. I don't know the road number right off, but it's called Happy Jack Road, which really takes you into beautiful high plains. Kirk Gowdy State Park is out near there, so we eventually dropped into Laramie, where we stopped for fuel there. And then from Laramie, we continued on, connecting back onto Highway 25. And then off of 25, we caught what was the original Lincoln Highway, which took us to the beautiful metropolis area of Medicine Bow, which, by the way, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but you saw the old Virginian Hotel there on the right. It's been there a long time. And somewhere along that road, I was watching for it, but I didn't see it. But somewhere along the road, there is a marker to the place where Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid robbed a train right there. And it's depicted, that robbery is depicted in the movie with Robert Redford and
interesting.
Whoever else. Paul Newman maybe was in that. But that actually happened right there. Actually, and near there is a sign that's called Robber's Roost. I don't know if you happen to see that. So Robber's Roost is near that spot. So anyway, so we were cruising quite a long way through there, which took us back eventually south. And we went through in Saratoga, and now we're back here at Riverside. And where are we going from here? I guess
I don't know, but it's going to be picturesque and beautiful.
Yes, it most likely will. So I'll just fill in the blanks later on as to where we ended up going. But there's a lot of things to be thankful for. Having a bike and having the ability to ride it, mental ability, physical ability, and a lot to be thankful for. But what's really to be thankful for is friends to ride with, too. So I'm very grateful for both of you guys, that you're good friends. I can say anything. I can be a complete idiot. I can ride way too fast or too slow. And you seem to be okay with it. Or at least you complain behind my back.
You should probably tell the folks how we met. Do you remember?
Oh, well, you should tell it. Colorado through the wife, right?
So my wife Lisa and I were coming up the canyon up to Estes Park, and we stopped at the Colorado Cherry store, and we pulled in there, and there was a very nice lady behind the counter named Karen Francis.
Blonde Swede,
there you go. And she asked, "Well, what are you doing here? What's going on?" I said, "Oh, we're up in Estes, and well, what do you like to do?" I was like, "Oh, my wife likes to hike. I like to motorcycle." motorcycle? She goes, you need to meet my husband. So she handed me a card, and I called you, and like, yeah, let's get together. And I remember, I think one of the first times we got together, we met at the Starbucks in town.
Oh, yeah.
And we were outside having coffee, and like, before you know it, we had like 8 guys sitting there with their motorcycles talking to us.
Yeah.
And it was just spectacular.
Yeah.
We became best friends ever since then.
It's great. It's just great. It's just this hobby that brings people together. I assume sailors experience the same thing with their sailboats.
That's right.
It seems like it's a little harder. It's not like you're stopping at the gas station together at the same time. But there is something just really special about motorcycling. Pilots compare it to flying. Sailors compare it to, adjusting yourself into the wind and various things. But just being able to go out to places just like this. There's one of those 4-wheelers I was just talking about over there.
Is that young lady?
Yeah, maybe a little 10-year-old driving a 4-wheeler right down the middle of the street, and they're perfectly safe and everything's fine out here. Just takes you back to the 1950s. But thanks for the conversation. Thanks for the ride. Thank you for your friendship. And
thanks for letting us explore new places with you and always taking us to a new frontier.
I'll get you lost everywhere I
can. Well, let's go get lost.
Let's go get lost. We got some more getting lost to do. Thanks, guys.
Well, I couldn't be more grateful for great friends like Andreas and Lisa to ride with. Our trip continued on south from there, where we re-entered Colorado. We went to Walden, topped off with gas there, continued on south down to Granby, then went over to Grand Lake, which is on the western side of Rocky Mountain National Park. Took a little break there, and then from Grand Lake, we continued over to Estes Park, through Rocky Mountain National Park at 12,200 feet up there, way above tree line. It was wonderful, as always. And then they just continued home to Estes Park, and I rode a little bit further down the canyon, going east to Loveland, and returned home. If you'd like more detailed information about this large loop that we rode today, feel free to reach out anytime. I can be reached at ron@peacelovemoto.com. Love to have a conversation with you, and if we want to connect over Zoom, we can do that too. Sometimes I think the next best thing to going out for a great ride is to talk about the ride, so feel free to reach out. As always, thank you so much for listening. I wish you peace. I wish you love.